everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Good
Looks like it's
afternoon.
pretty close to 2 o'clock in the afternoon of June the 13th. So I would like to call to order the Arkansas Able Plan Review Committee. And so we are now in order. So welcome, everyone. Good to see you. It's been about 3 months, I guess, since we got together. I think we sent out the minutes of the last meeting to you via email. And does anyone have any additions or corrections that they'd like to make? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Got a motion?
I second it.
We got a motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Second pass. Thank you. Let's go into the director's report. We're in the business. This is the business part of our meeting, and I'll turn the meeting over to Fran Jansen.
Thank you. Hello, how are you guys? Good to see you. So we have just a couple of things, or I have a couple of things that I wanted to share with you on some outreach that we've been doing since our last meeting. I can't remember if we had this scheduled at the time of our last meeting, but we were contacted by a resource group at Fellowship Bible Church, and they were holding a family resource night for families who have special needs, children or loved ones. And they asked us to co-present that night along with, it was kind of the bigger umbrella was about like estate planning. And so it was Chris and me, or it was just other special needs, or not special needs, special needs trust attorney and us. And it was a great meeting. We probably had what, 50 or 60 people at this. Yeah. And I mean, it was an intense night, but it was really, really, really good. So we made it very obvious that we'd like to be asked back for future sessions. Then Chris went to 2 different events in April. The Parent Advisory Council has a resource fair, and he visited with families and caregivers there. Then he also went to the Developmental Disability Providers Association conference and served on, in addition to manning the booth, he also served on a panel discussion with the same gentleman that we had presented with. So yeah, he's real, and that's like the second time I think you've presented at DDPA, isn't it?
Yeah, and we got 2 presentations out of that we'll report on the next meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Then we also attended virtually the National Able Alliance. As a reminder, we're one of 19 states. So we regularly meet with our counterparts in other states. And we had our annual due diligence with the folks at Ascensus in late April, and just went over the state of the program and addressing some needs that we have as a group. Then at the end of May, Chris and I attended it's called TMTS. It's Treasury Management Training Symposium, and they have like tracks for 529, tracks for ABLE, tracks for financial ed. So the 2 of us kind of divided and conquered and were able to attend a good cross section, but had some really good sessions about the ABLE plan. And then the last thing is we've also mentioned, it's kind of an ongoing conversation that we're having with the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities Office and the Disability Rights Association folks, who had reached out to our office about helping form some kind of, or going in with them on forming a financial education plan or program for adults with special needs. And in the middle of all this, I think it was ASEA invited us to attend a webinar that the National Disability,
Resourcing.
the National Disability Institute
Oh, that's right.
put on a presentation that is a program that they have developed with a grant that they got actually from Illinois. And JJ was actually helpful on helping them secure that grant. But all this to say, we both came away from that webinar thinking, we don't need to reinvent a wheel here. I mean, you've got the NDI with what I think checks most of the boxes for what they had approached us to form or to help form. So we meet with them, we meet with the DRA and Governor's Council person next week or the week after. And I think we had told them about it and they were gonna go on the website and check it out. But I think we're getting closer to, coming up with something that will address that need. And then of course, each of us has a stake in it. I mean, it makes sense for our office to be involved with that from a financial education and able standpoint. And it would be a tool that you all could use as well. So it's pretty encouraging. So we'll keep you posted.
Please, yeah.
And then the last thing, I'm going to toss it to Chris. He's going to update us briefly on some of the administrative side of the ABLE plan.
Yeah, and Kim is gonna touch on something bigger later on in her presentation. But what I wanted to report on was back in February, we were evaluating as the Alliance all of the transaction forms that we have. So, withdrawal forms, contributions, not change of signatory yet, but I'm getting to that. Anyway, the enrollment forms, everything like that to try to streamline it, enhance it where we can, especially where we've made programmatic changes, such as, co-authorized individuals, mailing addresses of record, things like that. But one of the main forms that we're really excited to be actually developing and not just revising is a change of authorized individual form. That's going to be really helpful to folks like our DCFS accounts that we have with them. Right now, under the current framework, what they're having to do whenever a child is adopted out of foster care is they'll have to close that account at DCFS and then turn right around and open up a new account with the parent or guardian as the authorized individual. What this form is going to allow them to do instead is just change the authorized individual from DCFS to that parent or guardian. So that'll streamline their administrative process, census's administrative process, our oversight responsibilities. It'll be a win-win for everybody.
Well, and there were some downfalls too for the account to have it closed.
Yeah,
There were just some other things that went into that created some problems. So being able to avoid that will help
Yeah.
as well.
and you'll notice some big figures and changes on some of the data points that Kim is gonna go over. So every time one of those DCFS accounts was closed, that was money out of the program. And then once the parent or guardian opened it under their authoritative power, that's money into the program. So DCFS has actually been making great efforts on working with Johnny in the last few months on going through a backlog that DCFS had, getting a lot of these accounts closed and opened up under the correct structure. So that's all I had. Kind of tease it up for Kim to go over the data points, unless there are any questions.
Kim, you ready?
Yeah, and I think overall, as we look to transition the accounts, in this case with an entity, into the new authorized individual who might be a foster parent, who might be someone who's another agency that's taking care of an adult individual who's left the system. People who don't understand the ABLE account won't have quite so much paperwork. It's quite so much of a burden in making that transition.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it ends up being more people are
Always helpful.
able to simply you know, fill out a lot less paperwork to get the same result in that they are maintaining the funds.
Yeah.
So, I'll go into that a little bit more. You know, in the presentation, you know, one thing I've noticed in the few quarters that I've been here is that, you know, 529 tends to have some sort of consistency and able as far as times of year people make contributions or distributions. There's not that same, you know, every year you're seeing the same trends. You know, this slide, though, really positive. It seems as if our total assets are growing in the same way that our 529 assets are, and that it's a consistent upward growth. So I think that's really what we want to be seeing, is that people over time are just being able to accrue a little more while they're also using the funds. So seeing that growth in a transactional account, I think is really great. If you go on, you can see that most people are either in that checking or that conservative option. I know from when Fifth Third, who's our banking partner, came to the due diligence, even though a lot of people are in that checking option, it's not everyone uses it in that same transactional way. They're looking for that FDIC insured product in order to just keep their funds safe. You know, growth is not necessarily what people are looking for here. They're looking for safety of principal. One thing to discuss is that we're looking at some savings account options right now, so that there can be a savings option included. We are going to be looking at some with an FDIC and some money market funds, which have a little more opportunity for growth with more safety of principal. So we'll take a look at that, and in the end, the Alliance will decide which way they want to go there. But hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a new savings product to add to our investments lineup.
What is
Okay.
the way?
Got a quick question on this slide.
Yep.
Hey, when these accounts are open, is there counseling given to the folks that are opening it, either the guardian or parent, on these different options and what they mean? Are they counseled on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joseph. So during the enrollment process and elsewhere on our website, we have what's called what type of investor are you, or what type of investor could you be? And so we're very cautious about, you know, giving too much
Financial
blatant advice, financial advice, especially given the community at hand. But we give examples like, you know, Susie is bound to a wheelchair and she's trying to save up for, you know, hardware to
ramp.
get installed on her van or ramp, and she doesn't like to take a lot of risks. Susie's considering the conservative option. Does that answer your question?
It does, because a similar challenge comes up when we're doing, we're required to counsel our potential clients that are in 501(c)s, the shelter workshops, about benefits of going to work, and that's a challenge in just.
Understand the difference.
You muted yourself halfway through that,
Yep,
Joseph.
that sure did, didn't I? But that's the challenge in trying to get them to understand that there are options that don't jeopardize their benefits. And I was just wondering how you guys were able to communicate these different options and what that means to them. And I like the scenario-based approach.
Thank you.
Yeah, also, you know, when you see entities like DCFS, they are going into the conservative option. They're looking to protect the principal for minors who are in their care. So that's one reason you might see a little more in there.
And Treasurer, you had asked what that last column, the Alliance level, so that, but that's a reference to the National Able Alliance, so where we stack against the
Yeah.
Alliance, the other 18
Oh, okay.
members.
Yeah, so the percent of total assets, that's how Arkansas is broken down. And if you wanted to compare that to the rest of the Alliance, as you can see, you guys have a higher percentage in the conservative option. You're pretty close on the checking option. And for both, those are the two standout as far as the number of assets going into the accounts.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. This is where I was speaking of contributions per month. It turns out in this calendar year, April stands out as having the majority of the recent contributions. If you look at former years, it's not the same. I don't know if it's the number of Fridays in a month or,
Well, question, contributions, that captures initial contributions as well, right?
yes.
So on the DCFS accounts, like I was saying, if one's closed and turned right around and
Another-
opened,
yeah.
that could explain some of this as well, right?
So this is Johnny. So yeah, exactly, Chris. Because when I was creating these slides, I saw this influx and I'm like, wow, these are some really good numbers. But then you also, once Kim continues with her presentation, you'll see it in the withdrawals.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then
That does make sense.
The withdrawals and the closed accounts both kind of look like that too.
Yep.
I ran a report in SSRT, the self-service reporting tool, and just to look at DCFS just on its own, and they were a big contributor to that back and forth, which shows Steve Sorrow's continuous work with getting everything, getting the backlog cleaned up, and
That's
so
your work too. You gotta take some credit.
all our work was one team, one fight. So
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of effort going into just
Cleaning
clearing out those older accounts for DCFS. And Steve is getting an impressive amount of work done. And I'm glad we've been able to work with him to have a better way of sending us forms in order to make sure that we have all the information clearly, legibly. If something can't go through on a fax, it's often an issue. And then as far as being able to share the information via email, you want to make sure everything's protected. So we have something called Box. And it's a secure way that Steve can just upload into this online tool and we're able to grab the document. So it was honestly one of the quickest and easiest things I've done since being with the Senators.
I was
Like,
very impressed.
having that work out, I was amazed. You could have knocked me over with a feather. Going on to the contributions by type, it does seem like most people have an electronic contribution. Chuck, surprising number of checks. I don't know if that's because of how we like Social Security, but that seems to be the second highest when it comes to how people are contributing. Payroll contributions quite small as a percentage, so I'm not sure how many people in Arkansas are able work alongside their disability benefits.
I pulled that number recently. I don't remember what it was.
And so like you guys were saying, there could have been some, it seems distributions were up quite a bit as well, so curious to see what June will look like based on this distribution count, if they're just going into another account under Arkansas Able with a different authorized individual. What is good is that our contributions, netting our distributions is a positive.
Yeah.
So more funds are coming into the account than are leaving, and people actively using these accounts is fine.
That's what they're there for.
So it's to a certain extent what you want to see is that people are able to utilize their money instead of having to spend down on things that aren't necessary to their quality of life.
Yeah.
And it's down the line on every one of the types is up significantly.
Which one are you looking at, sir?
The types of contribution by type.
Oh,
The next page.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Did y'all, yeah.
Yeah, we've just got that going over the outline. Now we're on the distributions.
So it seems like most people are using their money for qualified withdrawals to themselves. Like we were just saying, it kind of goes along that same scope. People are utilizing the funds to pay for daily living. Withdrawal at bank, it seems people are really using those debit cards. And then, seeing that withdrawal to third party, hopefully people are paying for their living expenses.
I had a gal randomly walk into our office the other day that I met with, and she was asking, she was on the waiver side of the disability community, so when you get a waiver for something, it's gotta be approved contractor, might have to be licensed behind insured and everything like that. She was asking me like, I want to use my Able account to build a ramp, like we were just talking about, up to my front door, who am I allowed to use for that? And she was just blown away when I told her, I was like,
Anyone
I
who
would
does it.
recommend, you do your thorough research on reviews and everything like that, but there's no,
Qualified, no
certified
limitations,
provider
yeah.
list that you have to go with. So she was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is shocking that when you give people the opportunity to utilize their own funds in the way that's best for them.
They're not used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No rollovers, which is good. Distributions by age group, it seems like most of the funds are being spent in the teen years and in your thirties. I don't know if anyone has a logical, thought to why that is. And why those other years are gaps. I don't know if based on when this account came into play, there's just a lot more people in those age groups.
I'm thinking like for the 11 to 16, that might be, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Going to
possibly,
Classes, things like that.
or physical therapy,
Mhm.
and maybe in the 30 to 40 range,
Living expenses.
that could be the first time some of our account owners are, truly out on their own.
Living alone.
Mhm.
Strictly spitballing theories there.
Yeah.
Christy or Joseph, do you have any insights as to what might possibly be those two age groups? Okay.
What Chris offered up sounds plausible.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Going into the new accounts by month, this probably goes alongside some of the ideas you were saying before about just having to switch over to a new account. I think that's still considered a new account, even if someone's rolling their money from an existing account that was with us. But it's still nice to see the positive growth. I mean, when you look at last year, accounts have quadrupled since last April and doubled since last May.
Yeah.
So we're still seeing growth, and you can still see that there's a lot of opportunity for growth, which is good. It seems paper and online enrollment are pretty close on this too. Like, people are definitely using both ways, and I wonder if that has to do with entities as well.
Mhm.
Is that right now entities are on paper
Mhm.
and they aren't enrolling one account, they're enrolling numerous accounts. So it might really skewing our paper numbers there. The custodians by type are broken down pretty evenly as well. Self accounts,
Wow, yeah.
parent, guardian, and authorized individual is pretty much each about a third. Can I ask Johnny, when it comes to the percent of custodian accounts, are we going by assets there? I think that's why it's a higher number.
Correct.
It's 38%. I think it's because it seems like if there's an AI, the assets are higher. Maybe that group is spending less of their money on the daily,
Mhm.
that regular daily spending.
Yeah, it's by asset, correct.
Thanks a lot, Johnny. All right, and then accounts by disability type, you can see that developmental disorders like autism and congenital anomalies like Down syndrome are a majority of the account holders.
That's pretty standard throughout the alliance, right?
I think so. Yeah, and when you look at the average account sizes, those two aren't that far off from each other either. So I think a lot of those people are able to work to save and keep those balance, spend their money, like they're able to go out, spend the money. It's a surprisingly low number, I think, and I haven't compared it to the whole alliance, in intellectual disabilities. So it seems a lot of people might be able to manage their accounts if they choose to.
Yeah.
And then accounts by custodian type. Mostly it's the account owners eligible for Social Security income benefits. And that's where the majority of the assets are as well.
Hey, Johnny, I have a question for you and Kim. On the next quarterly meeting report, could we get some of the authorized individual data expanded to see? And I know we've only been collecting the data for a limited time, but you know, how many of our AI shares are social security rep payees? How many of them are power of attorneys, things like that?
Yep, definitely do that.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
These are the account closures by month. It sounds pretty repetitive here, but you do wonder if this might tie into the higher, account openings as well. How many of these closed in order to, roll into another account with a different AI? I do think that'll be really helpful once we can get that done, where people are able to continue on with their same account. They might have things automatically being sent to it. They might have, do they have a checking account attached in certain instances and being able to continue to use that? So I think that would be good.
And I think on our last DCFS meeting, Steve Soros with DHS, he had mentioned, I want to say he had gone through like 50 or 60 of his list, which was about, I think, half of his list of backlog that he needed to go through, which could line up with those numbers.
Those numbers.
Yeah, that's correct, Chris. When I ran the report, it was 56 or 57 accounts.
About halfway there.
And then, I think the highlight of this remains consistent in that it's organizations that people are hearing about this plan. The organizations they're a part of, which I think is helpful for marketing and outreach, is that you can reach out to org types as opposed to trying to.
That's typically what we did.
Yeah, I think that's how most states work it, but it is, could chicken or the egg, is it
Yeah.
because we're reaching out to the organizations, but, I think having that trusted advisor to be able to help you with a
Right.
financial product when you're not used to financial products is very helpful, especially when Social Security doesn't give the best guidance to people as far as how they can use these accounts. Just something that we're working on internally is, there was just a story about people losing their benefits because they didn't realize there were certain ways they couldn't save. They knew the $2,000 a month in a bank account, but one woman had a life insurance policy to help her pay for her funeral. Someone else actually dealt with a funeral home to create an account there in order to be able to prepay. And they didn't realize that those were things that would impact their benefits, and never in the story did they talk about a Google account. They didn't get brought up a single time. They even had a person from Social Security as part of the story. So our marketing team is looking to see if we can do a PR piece that's, it's a response piece.
That'd be
To be able to
great.
say, hey, this is something that happens to people all across the country. This is a way to protect your monthly benefits. So, just keep that in mind, that that's something we're working on doing, for Able-wide.
Is that
within the
something
company.
you would bring to the alliance? Or
It
how
wouldn't
would we-
be something we'd be looking for approval on.
Okay.
Like I said, it's more of an Able-wide,
Sure.
It's in a census.
opportunity.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's
Okay, but we'll
opportunity we're
know
looking
when
for.
it's available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I'll talk to Suzanne more about that, but, she and I happen to have heard the same
Wow.
piece.
Yeah.
And, there are some organizations that do look a lot into
Mhm.
SSI and SSDI, some news networks, and to be able to work with them to be able to more
Educate.
heavily educate on the
Mhm,
product.
mhm.
Educate's the perfect term. The other thing that Chris was queuing me up for earlier was that, our online entity enrollment product is going to be out this summer, and it should be a way that entities are going to much more easily be able to track these accounts, to be able to see how much money people have in the accounts, what the account status is. If they're looking to open the account, there's more paperwork needed. They can upload documents as opposed to faxing, which the fax that we still use faxing shocks me to no end.
Yeah.
And be able to see, we're looking to see what we might want to do as far as account closures within the entity dashboard. There's only so long we want it to hold on to that information, but I think for someone like Steve to be able to see, hey, closed.
Yeah.
And now it's at a zero balance, or be able to pull an old statement if the person was looking to know how, or when their auditor's looking to know how much money was in that account. At
It's
the
right
end
there,
of the,
yeah.
so, you know, having all that right there, and there's a super user for all of these accounts who's able to assign signatories and assign people to be able to monitor. And that would be the person who is actually the caretaker responsible for the different people within care. And it's, you know, we talk about DCFS a lot, which is children in the state system, but there's also, a lot of states have Office of the,
Mhm.
of Legal Guardianship, where adults are being, cared for
Mhm.
by the
Yeah.
state.
And it's not just gonna be limited to, you know, government agencies or entities, you know, for-profit organizations are also gonna be able to open this up, just to clarify for you, Joseph and Christie. And also, one of the key things, that Ken is talking about is the dashboard. You know, she mentioned they'll be able to see what accounts are closed and open. That's all gonna be on one page though. You know, DCFS will be able to go in and see, you know, all 500-600 accounts that they have. Any of them need attention, they'll assign somebody to go through those and see what needs to be done.
And from there, you can click to the individual account and see the
Yeah.
account level information.
So on this last slide, you got organization. I assume that is an organization that one of these clients does business with.
So often, there's a community. So if you have a specific type of disability, you might work with
Like the Arkansas Autism
Autism
Resource.
or the ARC in the national. And often,
Mr. Seals.
these are the places that you go to for information and to be able to confirm information. You speak to different families that are in your same situation. And it's definitely the type of insular community where you go to your trusted contacts.
Right.
So,
And 40%, at least of the 24 so far, 40%, which is a high percentage, the rest of them are closed.
right,
So that's our targeted area. isn't it?
That's who
Yeah, and-
we're,
well,
That's kind of like a trickle down effect too, because a lot of these organizations that they're hearing about the ABLE plan from, Brandon and I have more than likely previously met with them
It's-
in the hopes that
they would do that.
these charts would look like this.
well, and even when you look at some other options here, you know, you look at from a presentation, that might also be an organization where they receive that information, but they're remembering a specific presentation they went to. Planner treasurer's website, well, we'll get them there. It was, you know, some of these other options that people are narrowing to could also be that more overarching org, and I think that's where the opportunity lies.
Do we know what percentage of people eligible to use this plan are taking advantage of it?
That information was at NAST. It was a very small percentage.
Right.
And will grow even smaller once it opens up to age 46.
And that's part of the
Or
reason
age of
why
onset.
we're able to open it up to
Yeah.
the age of 46 is because the amount of people taking advantage of it can is, like Kim said, it's very, very low.
Yeah, in 2026,
Mhm.
right now, it's,
The age of onset, so the disability currently, for you to qualify for an ABLE account, you have to have the disability at the age of 26 or prior.
Okay,
In a couple of years, that's gonna change to the age of 46.
46.
Which will have a lot more groups. We've talked about that in these meetings before. People who have sustained head injuries or veterans, those are groups that I think will be able to be helped by this product. I will say though, the one thing with ABLE is it's niche. You know, it's a unique group of people that has the money to save and doesn't have so much money that their parents have saved for them in a different way. So,
A lot of these people, because of the situation, have expended most, if not all, their resources.
mhm,
that's also what they're used to doing,
yeah.
Because they have to.
because how the system is formed.
Yeah, and as I said, I know JJ from Illinois is trying to put together a meeting with Social Security this year. And actually, a group within the National Association of State Treasurers is trying to assist with that. Because one problem we do have is that SSI does not give good information. And they don't assist people in having an understanding of these plans and what they could be doing to better help themselves. And they give information that contradicts what the regulations actually are for ABLE, and
Yeah.
it's regional.
Yeah.
So different offices provide different information. So if there's a way that we can better educate Social Security on ABLE, I think, hopefully that meeting happens and is impactful.
I think there was an example of that at TMTS, wasn't there? Where,
Yeah,
somebody from Social Security was there.
they were there
An
providing,
Able track session.
Yeah.
Talking about Able, and they misstated.
they gave misinformation. And, the states luckily knew it. So it is one of those cases where the states could help
Right.
Social Security to better understand this product. So that they're not so often going, so people feel safer, saving.
Well, and in some parts of it, it is kind of complicated. We have 529 in this to understand who all it applies to and
Yeah.
how it works. So
Well,
that can happen.
you don't want to lose your benefits. You need Medicaid.
Mhm.
If you're,
If you start talking about losing benefits, you got a problem.
yeah, so being able to trust a program while you're depending on another government program. We just have to, like all government programs, we have to learn to kind of get on that same page together.
Okay,
Do you have any questions?
Joseph or Christie,
I do
Yeah.
not have any.
No questions.
anything that you want to add to this conversation we've had? We're getting close to the end of our meeting.
No, I was just thinking about that number. You're asking a question, number of Arkansans with disabilities are taking advantage of this program. CDC reported, just had to look it up again because we use different numbers. CDC reports or census reports. They're saying there's 730,000 Arkansans with disabilities as of May of 23.
We have a little over 1,000 accounts.
Yeah, so
Of that 730,000 that are disabled.
Oh,
At
how
what
many,
age?
at what age?
Right.
That's very
yeah,
big.
and so the census, this is 2019 data here, said that 484,000 are 16 or older.
But the age of onset
Yeah,
is really, and I would be very surprised if that number could be broken down,
yeah,
accurately to say of those 730,000, 125 had the disability at the age of 26 or prior. I'd be very surprised if that's available.
yeah.
Probably around somewhere, but I don't know where.
But it's still gonna be quite low.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I don't know what we can do about it. We can just do our job, and do it as best we can.
Well, and I think the fact of the matter is the fact that everyone who learns about it, we're helping another person with an account that didn't exist a decade ago. So, with the boots on the ground and hopefully what we're able to do to help the entities, I do see it growing quite a bit, especially with that age of onset difference. These are also groups that may have more funds that they need to move in.
Definitely.
Okay, I guess one thing we need to know is if you looked at the schedule, looking forward to see when we might meet again.
Well, so one of the issues that Chris and I were talking about is, our preference, of course, is to have both of you here in person when it's possible. And I know with this Tuesday, Thursday schedule that we've tended to have, I think we butt up against some of your other responsibilities. So what we would like to propose, especially since we're a smaller group, is perhaps not worrying about it always being on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but is there another day of the week? Is it a Monday? Is it a Wednesday that would enable, where you don't have a regular conflict? Obviously, life's going to happen and there are going to be times where you still need to be remote, but if there's something we can do to move the time around, we'd
For me-
we'd be open to that.
Yeah, for me, I think, just looking at our calendars and, try to find a clear space. I know it's, 3 months out or whatever, but if we can just do it every time we have these kind of meetings, if we can just select the date and I can try to keep that spot clear as best I can, that would work for me. I don't, the standing meeting kind of gets in the way. Sometimes I things pop up for me, but if we can do it real time, like we're doing today, I can look at my calendar and say, okay, right now this is clear and I will do everything I can to keep it clear.
And Wednesdays are usually my lighter day. Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually packed full of meetings. So, and I seem to have a break.
Joseph, are Wednesdays typically okay for you?
Yes, I was just gonna add to that Wednesday's kind of clear for me as well.
Well, why don't, let us do this. Let us look at the Wednesdays in October
Hmm.
and check internal schedules, and then we'll send you an email or we'll call you and confirm and see if, are afternoons better than mornings, or you don't care?
For me, afternoon's better.
Yeah, afternoon.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, well, great.
Right.
Well, we'll look at that and we'll get back to you as soon as possible so you can get it on your calendar.
Okay, that will
Okay.
work.
Okay.
And I did have one more thing to add, if at all possible.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if there was any other business.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned October. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and I know last year Chris helped us out, manned the table for us. We're doing it again this year with DD Council. They grabbed a date. I just didn't write it down. I'll have to get that to you, but definitely would like y'all to be there and present and have a table, because that's the audience you need to reach.
And this is the event at the Capitol, is that
It is at the
correct?
Capitol. Yes, yes, we have secured the Capitol again. We'll be in the rotunda and we'll have various vendors around the walls there and
I
quite
remember
some
that.
presentation.
We were,
Yeah.
we were. You may have even,
Probably
wants to see
if it was October.
I think you did. I think
Yeah.
you did come out, yeah.
Would definitely appreciate it if you could stop by.
You came out of your cage.
Get the bear out.
Well, we'd appreciate it if you stop by.
And you still too.
Goodness.
Go.
All right.
Well, great. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we might even be able to find that on the website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
get you a date as soon as possible.
okay, great.
Any other business?
Not for me.
Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Y'all have a
Appreciate y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.